Okay, we are rolling. Today's date is November 11th, 2008. The time is approximately 11:08 a.m. We're here in Carlinville on Plum Street. Henry, can I have you identify yourself?
Henry Johnston, Donnie's brother.
Okay, and what is the address where we're at today?
302 West Nicholas Street.
In Carlinville, Illinois. And do we have your permission today to audio record the interview of your brother?
Yes.
Okay. And Donald, can I have you introduce yourself?
My name is Donald Johnston.
Okay. And if you could remember to speak up loudly enough so that the camera catches the audio. Do we have your permission today to audio and video record this interview today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'm Bill Clutter. I'm Director of Investigations for the Downstate Illinois Innocence Project. Also present for today's interview is Dr. Richard Leo. Dr. Leo, we have your permission to audio record the interview today. And also present is Rhonda Price, Rhonda Keach. My apologies. She's the project coordinator for the Downstate Illinois Innocence Project. And I'll go ahead and focus the camera on Donald, and I'll let Dr. Leo begin the interview.
So, Donald, my name is Richard Leo, and I'm a professor in San Francisco. I think I mentioned that before. I'm just going to I'm going to ask you questions about your memory of the interviews and interrogations in this case. I know it was many years ago, but before we start, I just want to say a couple things. One is that if I talk too fast, tell me to slow down. If I use words that you don't know what I'm saying, just tell me and I'll rephrase it. If you have any questions, interrupt me and just ask me questions. I don't want to say anything that's confusing. Sometimes I do. If you don't know the answer, feel free to say you don't know. I'm not looking for any particular answer. I'm just going to ask you questions that try to get you to tell me the best of your memory what occurred in these interrogations many years ago that led to your identifying Thomas McMillan and ultimately his conviction. Does that make sense? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So what I want you to do is describe for me the first time you had contact with the police in the Melissa Koontz case. The first time they contacted you or you were in their presence and the issue of Melissa Koontz's murder came up. Do you remember when that was?
Don't remember.
Now, I'm not talking about the date itself, but do you have a memory of the first time you talked to them about it?
That's in Sangamon County.
Okay, in Sangamon County, the Sangamon County Police?
Yeah.
And do you remember, did you mention the murder? Did they mention the murder? Do you remember, or what is your first memory of this, talking to the Sangamon County Police?
I was in Coupon County Jail up here.
Okay.
Up here. They turned me loose, and then these two private investigators caught me and took me to Springfield.
Okay. And did they mention the Koontz case? Or?
Yeah, David Leonard.
Uh-huh.
And I can't think of the other.
Detective James Mitchell.
Yeah.
Okay, so and they're with the Sangamon County Police?
Right.
Okay, so you were in their custody for something else?
Right. I was in custody up here for something. They turned me loose. And
When you say turn
me
loose, they turned you loose for that?
from up here.
Okay.
And then they cuffed me outside the door and took me to Sangamon County.
Okay, and did they tell you why you were going to Sangamon County?
Because I'm charging you with some murder.
And that was the Melissa Koontz murder?
Right.
And was that the first you'd ever heard about it?
That's the first time I ever heard about it.
Did you know about the Melissa Koontz murder? Had you heard about it in the newspapers before then?
Mm-mm.
Did you know why they were charging you with the Melissa Koontz murder?
And then David Leonard, and then they take me over here to this tavern over there. And the woman running the bar said, I don't recognize this guy.
That would be the Still Tavern. Was that in New Berlin?
Yeah, New Berlin Tavern.
So they were showing you to somebody?
to a woman.
Okay.
Bartender woman.
Okay.
And then the woman said, I don't recognize this guy. Said he'd never been in this bar.
Okay.
And then they took me from there, they took me to Springfield.
Okay, now is this after they told you they were charging you with the murder?
Yeah, they said, I'm charging you innocent. Guilty I mean. On the deal.
Did they say why they were charging you with the murder?
Said, you're bound. It was me, Tom, Gary, Danny, and Mary. They charged all 5 of us.
Okay, but I want to go back to the very beginning before they questioned your first contact with them. They pick you up and they set you loose for something else,
Right.
and then they take you in a car. The Sangamon County Police they take you to Springfield, but on the way they take you first to this tavern.
Yeah, they took me to the tavern.
And then they show you to somebody in the tavern who says they've never seen you before.
Never seen me.
And then after they take you to the tavern, where do they take you next?
They take me up to the jail.
Okay. And as when they're driving you to the tavern, that's when they tell you they're charging you with murder for Melissa Koontz. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. At that point, had they said anything about these other people, Gary Edgington and Tom McMillen?
Yeah, they brought them. Yeah, the 2 investigators brought Tom, Gary, and Mary and Danny.
To Springfield or to the tavern?
No, up there they was talking.
In the car.
Yeah.
What were they saying to you in the car to the best of your memory?
They said, well, I'm charging all 5 years for a murder. And I told them, I said, I didn't meant no murder at all. And they said, 5 of us didn't meant no murder. And well, they had my cousin, Sammy Pocketon, when we were going to court over in Peoria, had him, and he told them too, he didn't meant no murder. He said, that's 5.
So when you were in the car and they told you they were charging all 5, and you told them you didn't commit any murder, do you remember what they said to you after that? Remember that conversation, what occurred?
They locked me up in the cell.
Okay, but in the car as you were driving.
Yeah, they said, you going to jail, charging for a murder. And Leonard and said, I'm charging for a murder. And I told them I meant no murder. And then they got me out there to try to incorporate me. And then they tried to bribe me for Kentucky Fried Chicken out there. And
This is when you were in the jail, or when you were in the car?
At the jail for the
Before you got to the jail, did they say anything else in the car, or did you say anything else? Do you remember?
No, I didn't say nothing back to them
Okay.
at all.
So then you get to the Springfield
jail.
Jail?
The old jail.
And then what happens when you get there? What do they say? What do you say?
They're talking to me. They tried to bribe me. Said, you guilty. Both investigators said, you guilty.
What did you say?
I said, I'm not guilty of nothing. Then they give me a lawyer named Pete Woody.
What do you mean a lower name?
Lawyer.
Oh, lawyer's name. I'm sorry.
Pete Woody's his name. And then when Pete Woody said I was guilty.
Did you met with Pete Woody, the lawyer?
Yeah.
Okay, but before you met with Pete Goody, did they say anything else to you when you got to the Springfield jail?
No, they didn't say no more.
Because you said they tried to bribe you with Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah, they tried to drive me, not
But
I wouldn't answer them.
that was later, or that was then? Before?
That was then.
Okay. And when you say they try to bribe you, what do you mean? What do they say about the Kentucky Fried Chicken?
They tried to bribe me to spill out some beans, to tell on somebody.
Do you recall how they said it?
They got pretty smart about it, both of them officers.
And so you don't recall, when you say pretty smart, were they in your face? Were they loud? Were they soft?
They yelling.
And what were they yelling?
Said, you the one did the murder. we're gonna lock you up. I said, take me to the cell.
And then did that end it, or was there more conversation between?
It shut up. They wouldn't come back.
Okay.
And then when Pete Woody, that's the lawyer, he come talk to me. They took me out of the cell and talk to him. And
What did he say to you?
he goes, I think you're not innocent on the charge, on the case. He thinks that somebody else did it too. Pete did.
So you're saying that he thought somebody else did it, but he also thought you did it?
No, he didn't thought it then.
Okay, but so let's focusing just on your first trip to the Springfield jail, just on that trip, and then before you see Pete Woody, you're saying they yell at you and tell you did it. You said you didn't do it. They offer to give you Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah, the officers.
Okay. Did they say anything else before Pete Woody came that you remember?
No.
Okay. And then at some point, Pete Woody comes and he says he thinks you did it.
He come in there and think I did it too.
Okay. Are you eventually questioned by the officers again in the Springfield jail after that first time?
No, the state's attorney.
Okay, so after Pete Woody, then the next person to question you was the state's attorney?
It, when they went and rang me, they took me out of the cell every day to go to the, they take me out to the state's attorney's office there. Don Catacomb, that's his name.
And the first time that you spoke to them, what happened? So we've already talked about your first questioning at the Springfield jail, and you say that's all you remember, right?
Right.
And then with Don Woody, or is that his name?
Don Catacomb.
No.
Pete Woody.
Pete Woody.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, Pete
and
Woody.
then, so I guess so I want to get the sequence right, but I don't want to jump to the next one if there's anything else you remember on the previous one. So I think you were telling me, but correct me if I'm wrong, that everything you've told me so far on the first encounter with the police is what you remember. And then I was asking about Don Woody, is that his name?
No,
Joe.
Pete Woody's
Pete
the
Woody.
attorney.
Okay, Pete Woody, the attorney. Sorry. Was there anything else that Pete Woody told you besides at that point, besides that he thought you were guilty?
He said, Pete, he took me out of every day he took me out of the cell to take me out to the state's attorney's office every day.
Okay, and so the first time you talked to the state attorney, that was Don. You used to say his last name.
Don Catacomb.
Okay, so what happened the first time you spoke to him?
He had, he showed some pictures.
What are the pictures that he showed you?
Picture of Melissa Koontz,
Okay, and what did he say when he showed you her picture?
and he showed another picture of a necklace.
Okay, so let's just focus on the picture of Melissa Koontz. Do you recall when he first showed you the picture of Melissa Koontz, do you recall what he said?
He goes, "This is the girl you murdered."
And did he say anything else besides that?
And that's the only thing he said.
What did the picture look like?
The picture is he showed. It's like pictures like it's in a newspaper.
Okay, so was it a picture of her alive, or was it a picture of
It
her?
was a picture of the girl alive.
So it wasn't a picture of her being murdered?
No.
Okay. And so he just showed you this picture and said,
Yeah.
you murdered her.
Yeah.
Do you recall what your response was?
And I said, I didn't murder this girl.
And did he continue questioning you about
Yeah, he
this?
still answering some questions. He brought up about a necklace deal.
So what happened with the necklace?
He goes, "This is the necklace you guys stole from the girl."
Uh-huh.
And then
And what did you do? You
I
recall your
said,
response?
I don't know nothing about this. And then there's another woman, I can't think the other woman, state's attorney up there too.
Uh-huh.
A woman state's attorney, I can't think of her name.
Was it Carol Walker?
No, this is a little kind of heavy set.
Heavy set? Did she have blondish hair?
She's like an old lady.
Uh-huh.
Worked in there with Don Catacomb.
Do you recall how long Don Cadigan questioned you for on this first occasion where he showed you the Koontz picture and told you about the necklace?
They took me out of the cell every day out there.
Uh-huh.
Out there, out of the cell. every
Don
day.
Cadigan did this every day?
Yeah, every day. They take me up there every day.
And
out of
to
the cell.
question you about
Yeah,
this?
question me. And then they got Tom, when they got Tom and Gary up in there, and Mary. And they had the 15-year-old boy, Danny. And they started questioning him up there.
Okay, but that wasn't in your presence, right, that they were questioning the 15-year-old boy? It was separate, right?
Yeah, it was separate.
So I guess what I hope you can describe more of is those questioning sessions where Don Cadigan takes you out, or anybody in the Springfield
Right.
jail takes you out, and your best memory of what they would say and what you would say, how the questioning and answers went. So the first time you said he showed you the picture and he said you did it, you said you didn't. And I was wondering if there's anything else said about the picture besides that. And then you mentioned the necklace.
And he brought the necklace deal up. He did.
So was there? Do you recall him accusing you of being involved in the murder one
That's what I
time or
think it felt
many
like.
times? Do you recall anything else that Don Cadigan said to you when he was taking you out and putting every day from your cell?
And then they take me out, and then they transfer me out of that jail to Russville,
Okay.
over there, Russville jail, to house me over there.
Do you recall anything else happening before you got to Russville jail? Anything that they said during when they
No, they
questioned
didn't
you?
say nothing, no more to me. Took me over there and housed me.
When they took you out every day in the Springfield jail, how many days would you estimate this occurred over?
They take me out 5 times a day.
5 times.
Up
Well,
there.
how many days? Do you recall?
They still said, I'm not, then said, Pete Woody said, I don't know why they keep on taking you out, talking to you, state's attorney.
Do you remember any other conversations from when the state's attorney took you out during this time in the Springfield jail?
I don't know nothing else after that.
Okay. So at some point they move you to the Russville jail?
Yeah, Russville.
Did they tell you why they were moving you to the Russville
So
jail?
we're trained because they brought Tom in and Gary.
Okay.
They transferred me out over there to Russville.
Is that what they said?
Yeah, said
That-
we're transferring you out.
That would have been, I think, May 15th of 1990. Either the 15th or 14th, when they arrested Gary Edgington and Tom McMillen.
Okay. Is there anything else that you recall them saying before they moved you to the Russville jail?
They said we're going to take you over there because we got to house you over there because Tom and Gary's in there in Springfield jail. And they try to keep me separate from them.
Did they tell you anything about what was going to happen to you? Do you recall at that
No.
time? So you got transferred over to the Russville jail, right?
Right.
And do you recall what happened at the Russville jail? For your first interaction, did somebody come question you at the Russville jail?
No.
So you were never interviewed at the
No, I
Russville
was
jail?
not interviewed nothing.
Okay.
They took a picture. That's all they did. It's a picture and some fingerprints.
Okay. Now, at some point, you were interviewed by some police officers in this case, where you made statements about your involvement and Tom McMillan's and Gary Edgington. Was that in a different location, not in the Russville jail, but eventually another place?
I think in Sangamon County.
Okay, so you stayed in Russville jail. Do you remember how long you stayed in Russville jail for?
I don't remember.
But at some point, did they move you from Russville jail to Sangamon County?
They keep on moving. See, they come over there to Russville and they transfer me back and forth every day.
Back and forth to where? Sangamon?
Sangamon County.
Okay. You don't remember any. You don't remember any interview or interrogation of you at the Russville jail.
I don't remember nothing.
Do you remember them questioning you at the Sangamon County Jail?
They can answer a lot of questions up there.
Okay. So when they first questioned you at the Sangamon County Jail, is it that they moved you from Russville to Sangamon and questioned you and then moved you back to Russville?
Yeah, back and forth.
So they would move you from Russville to Sangamon County, question you in Sangamon County, and then move you back to Russville.
Right.
Okay. So do you recall the first time you were questioned in Sangamon County?
I can't remember the date.
No, just general, not the particular date, but the first time they questioned you at Sangamon County. You said you were questioned many times, right? Do you recall what they said to you the first time they questioned you at Sangamon County?
Oh, the two officers, they kept on saying that George was a murderer.
And do you recall what else they said besides that you were charged with a murder?
I can't call what else they were saying. They was cussing too.
Okay, so they were cussing at you, and they were they yelling at you?
That Dave Leonard said, kept on telling me, you're the murderer. Kept on and going, and then the other officers going the same way, back and forth, back and forth.
And what was your response when they would say
And
that?
I told them I didn't did it. And they kept it going.
Do you recall how long the first time they questioned you at Sangamon County was?
They questioned me that night, that day they arrested me out there, put me in there. They questioned me 2 times. The officer they took me out of the cell, the 2 private investigators kept on and questioned me.
Do you recall how long it lasted, or?
It lasted for a long time with them.
And if it lasted for a long time, do you recall what else they said besides yelling, or besides cussing and telling you that you did it?
That day Leonard said, I'm guilty.
Okay.
He kept on going that.
Okay.
Around. He said, you're guilty. He said, there are some more people involved in this. And they're guilty too.
And at first, did you deny that?
I said, I'm not guilty to nothing.
Okay. Did they say what would happen to you if you continued to deny?
He goes, well, we lock you up. We'll get it out of you. One hand and another.
Uh-huh.
The 2 officers.
And then did they come back to talk to you again?
And then they took me out and they took me over there to Russville too.
Okay.
At the den.
And then would they take you back then to Sangamon County to question you more?
Yeah, dress me again. State's attorney
Uh-huh.
again.
Uh-huh.
And he kept on talking,
What else would they say to you when they would question you?
There's all kinds of questions, something I don't understand.
Like what? Do you remember?
He said something about something, and I couldn't understand what he's saying. And I tell him over that when they got me out there, I tell him take me back to my cell, and I want to talk.
Did they ever talk about what might happen to you? Do you recall?
He said the 2 officers said you're gonna get the death penalty.
Did they say that specifically?
Yeah, them 2 officers did.
And how did they say it?
In a bad way.
Do you remember what their words were? Or?
I don't understand the words, what they're saying. Said that what you're gonna get the death penalty.
And you would get the death penalty for what?
For Melissa Koontz murder.
Did they say there was any way you could avoid getting the death penalty?
I paid attention to that woman state's attorney.
Uh-huh. And do you recall what she said?
Sandy, that was her name, Sandy.
Sandy.
Yeah. She said you ain't gonna get no death penalty or nothing.
So they were saying you might get the death penalty?
Yeah, that was.
And she was saying you weren't going to get the death penalty?
Yeah, that's what she said.
They were trying to get you to admit to being involved to the murder. And did you have a sense of what did you think they meant when they said you were going to get the death penalty or you weren't going to get the death penalty?
That's just didn't care.
Uh-huh. Did it scare you when they said
Yeah, it scared me.
And why did it scare you?
They're going to put a legal rejection.
Did they say that? Do you recall?
Yeah.
So when the officer said they told you that you were going to get the death penalty and they told you how you would get the death penalty?
Yeah, that officer right there.
Did they say there was any way to avoid getting the death penalty? Or avoid lethal injection?
Tell the truth.
And when they said to tell the truth, what did you think they meant by that?
Brought that girl up and I admit to it.
Uh-huh. So they were you thought they meant that they wanted you to admit to killing Melissa Koontz.
Right.
And correct me if this is what I understand you to be saying, but if I'm wrong, please correct me. So are you saying that they then said, if you don't admit to this, you'll get the death penalty, but if you do, and that might involve lethal injection, but if you do admit to it and tell the truth, what they said was the truth, you could avoid getting the death penalty and lethal injection?
That's what they told me.
And that's what you understood them to mean?
Yeah.
And did that have an effect on you?
Yeah, that's why I told him. I said, yeah, I did it,
And so was it shortly after they told you about the death penalty that you said you did it?
Then they left me alone.
How many times did they mention the death penalty? Do you recall? Was it just once or was it more than once?
3 times.
And then after that you said you did the Melissa Koontz murder?
Yeah, that's what I told him.
Was it because they'd scared you with the death penalty that you?
Yeah, it scared me.
Uh-huh. What did you think they wanted to hear? Do you recall?
I don't know.
Yeah. And then you said that they left you alone after that. What do you mean?
That didn't bother me no more.
Okay. But eventually they asked you more questions about the murder of Melissa Koontz, right?
Right, when I went to court. And they kept on transferring me.
But did the officers question you more about the details of the Melissa Koontz
He said
case?
something about detail.
About your role in it, or Gary Angelo's role in it, or the Pockington's role in it? Do you recall any questioning about that?
Now they questioned Danny, Mary, Tom, and Gary Edgington. They questioned him up there. They had us all 5 of us in a room
At the same time?
at the same time.
Okay, so I want to get to that, but I want to make sure that I've got the sequence right. So after they threaten you with the death penalty, right, and then you admit to it, and then they leave you alone, and then eventually they question you again. Did they question you any more before they had all 5 of you in the same room? Do you remember when the next questioning session was?
The last one, they took us in a room, took us one at a time in a room. The 2 of us, me and Gary, in a room, and they got us on TV.
Did you know you were on TV at the time? Did they tell you?
And then told me and Gary.
They did not.
And then they pulled Gary out of there. Then they bring Tom in there. They threw Tom and us together inside of this cell. And then they bring the 15-year-old boy in there, put him in there with me. And then when we come back out the door where they bring us out, and there's got a TV right there with our pictures and all that, all the interview stuff. Got us all on camera on TV.
You knew at the time that it was being recorded?
And we didn't know what they were recording.
But you saw the TV?
Yeah, we seen the TV with our pictures all on it.
So after they threatened you with the death penalty, is your next memory that you were having conversations one by one in that room with these people?
Yeah, they had us in that room.
They didn't interrogate you before that? See, I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything.
That officer come in there, me and Tom, not me and Gary was in there, and there's an officer, private investigator in there,
And was he asking you questions?
asking questions to me and Gary. And Gary said he did it.
Mhm.
And he kept on going on Gary.
Do you recall what the officer was saying when asking those questions?
He said, you two gonna get death penalty.
So
Kept
it
on
was,
going.
it was again then the death
Again, about death penalty.
Uh-huh.
Well, they pull him out of there and they bring Tom in there.
Okay.
And he started asking Tom the same questions to us. Me and him together in there.
Okay.
And he threatened Tom, said, you gonna get the death penalty.
Okay.
And then they brought the 15-year-old boy in there. 15-year-old boy Danny in there.
Right.
And they started talking to Danny. And Danny started cussing them out. Danny was.
Okay. When they were talking to Gary Edgington and Tom and Danny, were they also talking to you? Were they?
Yeah, they're talking to me in the same room.
Okay.
They cut Mary out of there. Cut Mary Proctor out of there.
Okay.
Just had me, Tom, Gary, and Danny in that room. That's four.
Okay. And then did any of those? Did you continue to say that you were involved at that point?
And the officer said, you guys are guilty. That's what he kept on going. Said, you guilty, guilty. Said, you three gonna get the death penalty.
Okay. Keep going.
And then Pete come in there. Pete Woody, the lawyer, come in there and said, I guess the boys need to go back to the cell. And Pete started asking some questions to Tom,
Okay.
and Gary.
Okay. Do
They
you
took
recall?
me out of the room.
Okay.
And they got like a little couch. Then they had a TV in the room. And my lawyer's in there talking to Tom and Gary. And they're all on TV. We're sitting there watching the TV being Danny Pockerton sitting right there when they got him in the room.
Okay. So at some point you started describing details of the murder, Melissa Koontz murder. Do you recall when you started providing them those details at all? The questioning session, was it after this questioning with all these individuals or before? Do you recall?
Don Ken can show me the picture.
Okay.
Drive this and drive that.
Okay, so when Don was showing you the pictures, now I don't know if you would remember any of these specific dates. The July 13th, 1989. Looks like an interview or an interrogation by Detective Leonard. When was the first time Detective Leonard questioned you? Have we gotten to Detective Leonard's questioning of you yet? Is it during or before any of the questionings that you've described, or is it after?
There's that over there in the car. They're talking to me.
Okay. So if I remember the sequence right that you described, you're talking about being in the Russville jail and then being taken back and forth to the Sangamon County, and that was all after what had occurred previously in the Springfield. And so I'm looking at a transcript of some questioning by Detective Leonard, and it looks to me like maybe this is 80 pages of transcript, and so I would be. It occurred on July 13th, 1989, and July 14th. Usually, I mean, do you remember this questioning at all? Do you remember? Do you remember Detective Leonard questioning you in a car ride from the Russville to the Sangamon or to the Springfield jail? Is that what you? When I say Detective Leonard's questioning of you, you mentioned a car. Was this in the car that you?
In the car, transferring me back and forth.
And what did he say in the car? Do you recall?
They had tourists in the car.
They had what in the car?
Two tourists. Two prisoners. Me and another guy.
Okay.
Who was the other person? Did you know him?
I can't think of his name. There was three on the case. There's 3 people was on the case, testified on the case. 3 people.
Do you recall what Detective Leonard said to you when you were in the car?
I didn't pay half attention to him half the time.
Do you recall any other time when Detective Leonard questioned you that was not in the car, but at a police station?
At the jail,
Which jail?
Sangamon County Jail.
Okay. Do you recall what Detective Leonard said to you when he was questioning you?
He said, talking about that murder case.
And what do you recall what he said about the murder case?
And I told him, I said, I did the murder. He goes, well, we got to charge you anyhow or something.
Do you recall anything else that Detective Leonard said?
I can't remember nothing else.
Okay. So at some point you started, you agreed, you made the confession, the admission that you were involved, and you described that was because they threatened you with the death penalty and they scared you. And correct me if I'm summarizing what you told me earlier, but if anything is wrong, correct me. And that they led you to believe that if you admitted to this, you could avoid the death penalty.
And what they said.
By what?
That's what they said.
Okay. So, did you, when you started admitting to killing Melissa Koontz, after they mentioned the death penalty, did you know any details about how Melissa Koontz was killed?
No.
So how did you learn the details of Melissa Koontz's murder?
Prisoners out there.
So what sorts of things would prisoners say to you?
They said that the guys hung this girl.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
Do you recall what else prisoners told you about Melissa Koontz's murder?
And they said, you guilty?
The prisoners said that?
Yeah, the prisoners.
And when you say prisoners, you mean people that you were in jail with?
Yeah.
Okay. So, did anybody tell you how the Melissa Koontz murder occurred?
No.
So, when you were confessing to the Melissa Koontz murder and giving the police information, did you make that information up, or did somebody give you that information? Do you recall?
Can't call.
So, if you said you let the girl out of the car, or you killed her a particular way, do you recall why you would have said what you said, or?
They got me scared. Dave Leonard, name.
Okay. So were you making up the details, or had you learned something and were giving them what you had learned about the case, or both? Let me just ask it more simply. When you gave them some details, were you making up some of the details about how Melissa Koontz was murdered?
Yes.
And you said it was because they scared you that you were making up these details?
Yes.
Did you learn any of the details about Melissa Koontz's murder?
No.
So when you were giving them the details, to the best of your memory, were you just making them up, or were you repeating what you had learned from anybody else?
I think I did.
Just making them up? Okay, sorry. Asked two questions in one. I didn't mean to do that. So when you told them about Tom McMillan's involvement in this, were you just making up details to satisfy them?
Yes.
Okay. Nobody told you that Tom McMillan was involved in this. Do you recall being questioned by Detective Leonard and Detective Mitchell?
Yes.
Okay. And have you described to me everything you remember about that, or is there anything else that Leonard or Mitchell told you that?
No.
So when they questioned you, you provided some details that you were making up, and then sometimes they would say, that's not the truth. Do you recall making up other details if they said it wasn't the truth, or do you recall any of that questioning if they would tell you something wasn't the truth?
I can't call that.
So, the questioning that we've described so far, I'm wondering if I've left anything out. You talked about the Springfield jail. You talked about the car rides from Sangamon or Russville to Sangamon. You talked about the death penalty and making up these stories. You talked about being questioned with other ones of the defendants. You talked about them telling you what you did and who was involved. I just mean that to summarize. I guess what I'm wondering is, was there any other questioning by anybody else about this that you can recall other than what you've described? Sometimes I haven't, it's something I may not have asked about. Russville, Springfield, Sangamon County, any other questioning that you recall besides what we've talked about?
Not now.
Not now. Any questions?
I do have a few. What I'd like to do is take you back to the very beginning. You mentioned that Don Cadigan showed you a photograph of Melissa Koontz when she was alive. Was that the same photograph that you saw on the missing person poster?
Yes.
Okay, and you remember Deputy Gary Edgington? He was a sheriff's deputy from Macoupin County. Do you remember him?
Think so.
And we have a report from Deputy Ewan on June 28, 1989, that he was giving you a ride home one night, and you happened to notice Melissa Koontz's picture on a missing person poster. Do you have any memory of that as you sit here today?
No, I don't remember.
Okay, but I've got a report from Deputy Ewan that where he wrote at the time that you saw a picture of Melissa Koontz, and he explained to you that she was missing, and you mentioned to him that you thought you may have seen her in Carlinville earlier that day at Missy's, Bob Conley's house. Do you have any memory of making that statement? Okay, and that's fine. I mean, and it seems like a little bit later, Deputy Ewan writes a report on July 8th, so this would have been maybe 2 weeks later. And this was when you were being booked into the jail at Carlinville. It was late at night, almost midnight. I think you might have been maybe urinating. You might have been drinking that night. You may not have any memory of it, but he made a report that you mentioned to him that you knew who killed Melissa Koontz. He asked you, how do you know? You said, well, I was there. Then he wrote in his report that you said that it was Tom McMillen that killed her. And then he asked you about some details, and you said he choked her to death, and that it happened in Madison Street in Springfield. Do you remember any of those details? And you might not have, but that's in his report. And it appears that based on that report, then he contacted Detective Leonard and Detective Mitchell, and they drove from Springfield to Carlinville when they interviewed you. Do you have a better memory of that? Okay. But is it fair to say that you had no involvement in the murder of Melissa Koontz?
Yes.
Okay. And what I have today, and this is based on our earlier interview back in July, we have what's called an affidavit that we'd like to read to you. You don't read well, is that correct? Okay, and let me just read each paragraph, and if you have to make any changes, we can do it verbally, and I'll make note and make changes. But this is going to be an affidavit that's going to be filed in court to support what's called a petition to have what's called forensic evidence tested. You ever watch CSI on TV? Okay. This is it's called DNA evidence. It's the person that killed Melissa Koontz came in contact with her may have transferred his DNA through skin cells or body fluids, and so we're going to ask the court to have that evidence tested that would be able to scientifically show who actually killed Melissa Koontz. So we'd like to I'll read this to you line by line, and I'll have you initial each line after I read it, and you can comment whether it's accurate or not accurate. And I'll read you some reports of Deputy Ewing to help what's called refresh your memory. And you can rely on police reports if that helps to refresh the memory. So we'll go through it line by line. The first line is, my name is Donald Johnston. That's correct.
Correct.
And you do reside in Carlinville. Is that true? Okay. Do you want to initial this line? You want to look it over before? Just initial where it says number 1. That we've just read that to you. And that part's accurate. And don't hesitate if there's something that's not accurate to correct it. I am the same Donald Johnston who testified at the trial of Thomas McMillan on or about July 17, 1991, for which he is now serving a life sentence. You're the same Donald Johnston that testified in Tom's trial?
Yes.
Then you'll have to rely on me that I got the right date, right? Okay. Go ahead if you would. Number 2, just put your initial. Okay. Number 3, I gave false information to police detectives when I told them that I had information about the murder of Melissa Koontz. Is that statement true?
True.
Okay. If you can just initial that, number 3. Paragraph number 4. The first time I saw Melissa Koontz was when Deputy Gary Ewing of the Macoupin County Sheriff's Office offered to give me a ride home on the evening of June 28, 1989. I saw her picture on a missing person poster. I thought I recognized her as someone I had seen in Carlinville earlier that day. I had no information about her disappearance. And what I'll do is I'll refresh your memory. This is Deputy Ewing's report from June 28, 1989. And he said he was in Modesto. He got a call. He said that he found you walking down the street. You said you were going to Mary Pockington's house. Apparently it was a long way away. He offered to give you a ride home. Does that help to refresh your memory? Okay. And he said that on the way to Tom and Mary's residence, Goose saw a picture of Melissa J. Koontz lying in the front seat of my squad car on a clipboard. Goose told this reporting officer that he knew the girl in the picture and that he had seen her in Carlinville on June 28, 1989 at 12 noon at Bob Conley's house, and that she was with another girl by the name of Sissy, and they were driving a small black car. Does that help refresh your memory, what you told Deputy Ewing? Okay. But it's fair to say that if this is in the report, that's probably a statement you might have made to him?
Minor.
Okay. So let's just, if we could, if you can initial this, and I'll put in here, you don't really remember this, but we'll rely on I'll attach Deputy Ewing's report to help support that paragraph. Does that sound fair? Okay. So why don't you go ahead and number 4 is just put your initial. And I'm going to go ahead and put on here, he doesn't remember this, but see attached report of Deputy Ewing. And I'm going to put my initials here. And that's number 4. I'm going to circle number 4. Now we'll go to paragraph number 5. And since I've written in this margin, I may go over to the opposite side of the paper to put your initials. This paragraph 5 reads, "The truth is, I was not present when Melissa Koontz was kidnapped." Is that statement true?
No.
No, it's not true, or no, you weren't present?
Not true. Not true.
What's true?
I was not present.
That's right. You were not present when she was kidnapped. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I was not present when she was killed. That statement, is that true?
Not true. Was not present.
You were not present when she was killed.
Right.
Okay. I was not involved in the murder of Melissa Koontz in any way. You were not involved in her murder. Is
No.
that true?
I was not involved.
You were not involved. Okay. I did not witness her abduction. You didn't see who kidnapped her. Is that true?
No. Not true.
I'm sorry.
It's not true.
Okay. Were you there when she was abducted?
No.
And did you see her get abducted?
No.
Okay. So we got that clear. I did not witness her murder. You weren't there when she was murdered, right?
No.
Okay. I served time in prison for a crime I did not commit. Were you innocent?
Not innocent.
I'm sorry.
Not innocent.
Okay. Did you plead, when you pled guilty, were you, well, let me just explain. Did you serve time in prison for a crime you did not commit?
Yes.
Okay. Were you innocent?
Innocent.
Okay. So we're clear. All right. Anybody have any questions? Need to clarify that more? I'm going to go ahead and just draw a line right here and have you initial that. That we just went over this paragraph, and that's true and accurate. Paragraph 6, on July 17, 1991, I lied when I testified that I was present when Melissa Koontz was kidnapped. Did you provide false testimony at Tom's trial?
Yes.
Okay. I lied when I told the jury at Tom McMillan's trial that he pulled her out of the car and stabbed her in the arm.
Lie.
It was a lie when you testified to that. I lied when I told the jury that Tom McMillan picked her up and placed her in the trunk of Mary Pocklington's car. That was a lie?
Lie.
Okay. I lied when I told the jury that our intent was to rob someone for beer money. Was that a lie when you testified to that? A lie? Okay. And that we had stolen a silver necklace. Was that testimony a lie also?
I didn't mention nothing about a necklace.
Okay, you may not remember it, but if you did, that would have been a lie. Is that true? Yes. Okay. Now I'm going to have you initial right next to the number 6. That we've gone over it, and that's true and accurate. All right. Paragraph 7. There's only one more after that. I finally told the truth when I was contacted on Sunday, July 20th, 2008, by the Downstate, Illinois Innocence Project. And that was when we saw you that Sunday morning. I was with 2 of my students.
Yeah.
And you finally told the truth, and we videotaped that statement?
Yes.
Okay, and that was the truth?
Truth.
Okay. The statement that I made to Bill Clutter, which is myself, Sarah Wellard, and Priyanka Deo, is the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Is that an accurate statement?
True.
True. Okay. That statement was videotaped. Remember that being done? Okay. Why don't I have you go ahead and initial right there, right next to 7. And this is the last paragraph. During the interview that took place before the video, I told them that I was innocent. Do you remember making that statement?
True.
And that Danny Pocklington, my cousin, was innocent. You remember making that statement?
True.
He served time in the Juvenile Department of Corrections for a crime he did not commit. Is that true?
True.
I told them that his mother, Mary Pocklington, was also innocent. True?
True.
She served time in prison because she was accused of lying when she told police that Tom McMillen was innocent.
True.
Mr. Clutter then asked, what about Tom and Gary? Are they innocent? Remember me asking that question? And that's when you told
True.
the truth? I broke down crying. I told them every night I think about this. You remember making that statement to us?
True.
It weighs on me. What I have done. Tom McMillen and Gary Edgington are in prison because I lied at their trials. Is that true?
True.
Tom and Gary are innocent. True. You're
True.
shaking your head. Okay. And this is where you sign your name, and this I'm going to place you under oath. It's just like being in court, except we're at your house. It's a little friendlier. Do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, you're going to have to speak up.
Yes.
Okay. Would you sign this statement under oath today? All right. I'll go ahead and give you the pen. Very good. All right. And is there any